The Manny, Roy, and Loren Show. Kiss 95.1.
Good morning.
We have a special guest sitting in for Loren, former intern,
Now co-worker.
Whitney Thor.
I'm not even really sitting in for Loren. I'm sitting in for Riley, sitting in for Loren.
Don't look at it that way, okay? Just because you're the fill-in to the fill-in.
Whitney Way Thor has had a difficult year after her mother, the beloved Babs, passed away in December 2022. Hello everyone, welcome to my channel, My Big Fat Fabulous Life. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before starting the video, please go ahead and hit the subscribe button and give this video a like up. Since then, fans have noticed several differences in the way Whitney has been acting and is giving some of them psycho vibes. Keep reading to see why some viewers are comparing Whitney Way Thor to Norman Bates. Glenn Thor becomes a bigger part of MBFL. Glenn Thor has become a much larger part of My Big Fat Fabulous Life following Babs' death last year. When she was asked about her dad taking a bigger role on the show, she said that he definitely had big shoes to fill. Whitney Way Thor also discussed how they were trying to rebrand her dad as GT. However, many fans have already seemed to be disgusted with the way Whitney treats her dad on the show. More specifically, they haven't been loving the way she seems to be exploiting his relationship with his long-lost daughter. Now, some MBFL viewers think that Whitney may actually be unstable herself. Is Whitney Way Thor okay? One Reddit member took to the platform to discuss some of their observations so far this season. Whitney is trying to morph into being Babs, like psycho Norman Bates level, dressing in his dead mother's clothing and mimicking her speech. Whitney is doing this, the person wrote. They continued by saying that they believed Whitney Way Thor was trying to make her father miserable with her antics. By behaving like Babs, she is trying to act like his wife and not his daughter anymore. She knows exactly what she is doing, and it's disturbing and difficult to watch. But here I am watching the train wreck unfold, the Redditor stated. On top of that, fans think that Whitney feels threatened by Glenn's long-lost daughter, despite being someone who is pushing the relationship. At the end of the day, many people feel that Glenn Thor is only going along with filming for My Big Fat Fabulous Life because he knows it is Whitney's only source of income. Her brother Hunter also seems to be a target of Whitney's. She appeared to know where her brother had alcohol stashed in the house and seemed to be holding it over him, according to some fans. One Redditor wrote, "It gave the impression to me that he's leaning on alcohol and she knows it, and will not hesitate to expose his issues on camera if he does not comply." Additionally, some people think that if it weren't for the show, Whitney Way Thor may resort to self-harm. Overall, many viewers think that she is unstable right now and is taking it out on her immediate family. It's not going to end well, the post concluded. What do you think about Whitney Way Thor's recent actions on My Big Fat Fabulous Life? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. Whitney Way Thor had always been accustomed to the spotlight. As the star of the hit reality TV show My Big Fat Fabulous Life, MBFL, she was no stranger to scrutiny and public opinion. But when fans started comparing her to the iconic character Norman Bates from Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho, Whitney couldn't help but feel a chill run down her spine. It all started innocently enough. A few fans on social media began pointing out similarities between Whitney and Norman Bates, citing their shared struggles with mental health, complicated relationships with their mothers, and the eerie parallels in their personal lives. At first, Whitney brushed off the comparisons as nothing more than a coincidence. After all, she was nothing like the fictional character who was infamous for his murderous tendencies and twisted psyche. But as more and more fans began drawing parallels between her life and Norman Bates, Whitney couldn't help but wonder if there was some truth to their observations. Chapter 2. Digging Deeper. As the comparisons to Norman Bates continued to mount, Whitney found herself delving deeper into the character's backstory. She rewatched Psycho, poring over every scene and dissecting Norman's motivations and actions with a newfound curiosity. What she discovered both intrigued and unsettled her. Despite their obvious differences, Whitney couldn't deny the similarities between herself and Norman Bates. Both had experienced trauma in their pasts, struggled with mental health issues, and grappled with complex relationships with their mothers. But while Norman's story ended in tragedy, Whitney was determined to carve out a different path for herself. She refused to let the comparisons define her, instead choosing to focus on her own journey of self-discovery and healing. Chapter 3. Facing the Mirror. As Whitney stared at her reflection in the mirror, she couldn't help but see traces of Norman Bates staring back at her. The haunted look in her eyes, the weight of her past bearing down on her shoulders, it was as if she were staring into the eyes of a stranger, someone she barely recognized. But as unsettling as it was, Whitney refused to let fear dictate her actions. She was determined to confront her demons head-on, to embrace the parts of herself that she had spent so long trying to hide. With a newfound sense of purpose, Whitney embarked on a journey of self-exploration, seeking therapy, practicing self-care, and surrounding herself with loved ones who supported her unconditionally. And as she began to peel back the layers of her own psyche, she discovered a strength and resilience she never knew she had. Chapter 4. Breaking Free. As the comparisons to Norman Bates slowly faded into the background, Whitney found herself embracing her true self more fully than ever before. She refused to be defined by the perceptions of others, instead choosing to forge her own path and live life on her own terms. With each passing day, Whitney grew stronger and more confident, shedding the shackles of her past and stepping into the light of her own truth. And as she looked back on the journey that had brought her to this moment, she couldn't help but feel a sense of pride in how far she had come. No longer haunted by the specter of Norman Bates, Whitney Way Thor stood tall and proud, a beacon of hope and resilience for fans around the world. And as she gazed into the future with excitement and anticipation, she knew that the best was yet to come. Chapter 5. Reflections. In the end, the comparisons to Norman Bates had been a wake-up call for Whitney, a reminder that she was more than the sum of her past traumas and struggles. They had forced her to confront the parts of herself that she had spent so long trying to bury, and in doing so, had set her on a path of self-discovery and healing. As she closed the chapter on that dark period of her life, Whitney felt a sense of gratitude for the journey that had brought her to where she was today. She had emerged from the shadows stronger and more resilient than ever before, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead with courage and determination. And as she looked out at the world with renewed clarity and purpose, Whitney Way Thor knew that she was no longer defined by the comparisons to Norman Bates. She was a survivor, a warrior, and above all, a beacon of hope for anyone who had ever felt lost or alone. Epilogue. Embracing imperfection. As Whitney Way Thor stepped into the spotlight once again, she did so with a newfound sense of confidence and self-assurance. She had learned to embrace her imperfections, to wear her scars as badges of honor, and to never apologize for being true to herself. And as fans watched her journey unfold with bated breath, they couldn't help but be inspired by the woman who had overcome so much to stand tall in the face of adversity. For Whitney Way, Thor was not just a reality TV star. She was a symbol of resilience, strength, and the power of embracing one's true self. As the credits rolled on another episode of My Big Fat Fabulous Life, Whitney smiled, knowing that she had finally found peace in the reflection staring back at her.